in interesting times. Today's stories. Iran parliament passes a counter-terror finance bill. Residents search for their home in the Indonesian village swallowed by quake. Pompeo lands in Seoul after meeting Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. Senator Mitch McConnell holds a news conference after the Senate's Kavanaugh vote. Plus, #Vegas Stronger, a year after the deadly mass shooting. And artists paint portraits of Las Vegas shooting victims. Hello everyone, I'm Ace Ramirez, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Iran's parliament on Sunday approved a bill to counter terrorist financing that was strongly opposed by conservatives but seen as vital to salvaging the nuclear deal with European and Asian partners. The bill aims to bring Iran's laws in line with international standards and allow it to join the UN Terrorism Financing Convention. It is one of 4 bills put forward by the government in recent months in a bid to meet demands by the International Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, which has given Iran until later this month to tighten its laws against money laundering and terror financing.
مشکلات ما حل خواهد شد، اما می توانیم تضمین بدهیم که با نپیوستن به این لایحه آمریکا بهانه مهمی را برای افزایش مشکلات ما پیدا خواهد کرد.
The issue has become particularly pressing since the United States walked out of the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran earlier this year and began reimposing sanctions. The other parties to the deal, Britain, France, Germany, China, and Russia, have sought to salvage the agreement and maintain trade with Iran, but have demanded that it accede to the FATF. Joining the United Nations Convention has been controversial because hardliners say it will limit Iran's ability to support armed groups in the region, such as its Lebanese ally Hezbollah. Iran is alone with North Korea on the blacklist of the FATF, although the Paris-based organization has suspended countermeasures since June 2017, while Iran works on reforms. A previous bill on the mechanics of monitoring and preventing terrorist financing was signed into law in August. 2 other bills on money laundering and organized crime have also been passed by Parliament but have been delayed by higher authorities that vet legislation, including the Guardian Council. A week after an earthquake and tsunami obliterated parts of Palu on Sulawesi Island, some locals returned to their neighborhood for the first time since running for their lives, tried to find their homes and salvage some belongings.
Sekitar 200 sampai 300 meter di atas.
200 meter?
Iya.
Stepping gingerly through the pulverized remnants of her Indonesian village, Nonlis Kando spotted a white shoebox imprinted with neon red lips sticking up from the ruins and burst into tears. The 36-year-old office worker had found her home, or what was left of it, after an earthquake and tsunami obliterated parts of Palu on Sulawesi Island. A week after the twin disaster killed more than 1,600 people, Kando returned to her neighborhood for the first time since running for her life as the world around her collapsed. Pitobo, a cluster of villages in Palu, was one of the worst hit. Much of it was sucked whole into the ground as the vibrations from the quake turned soil to quicksand in a process known as liquefaction. It is feared that beneath the crumbled rooftops and twisted rebar, a vast number of bodies remain entombed. Aghast at the totality of devastation, barely a vertical structure remaining, Kando joined shell-shocked neighbors as they staggered through their unrecognizable community. But her mood quickly shifted from horror to grief as she spotted the empty shoebox and realized the sickening mash of mud and concrete at her feet once housed her worldly possessions. She noticed a binder holding certificates and important personal documents, the reason she returned in the first place. She said this would make life easier to rebuild her life. But the impact of her discovery and realization of everything that's lost make her emotional.
Perasaan saya itu sama seperti kejadian yang pertama. Saya itu tidak berhenti bergetar dari tadi.
The scale of the task ahead is enormous. For now, she's living with her parents, many miles away. But she struggles to imagine what life will now be like for her, her husband Michael, and their 2 young daughters. For now, she will make do with the documents and the comfort of a new fragments her old life salvaged from her home. A pair of metal bowls, a serving tray, a man's watch, and a chipped plate. Up next, Pompeo lands in Seoul after meeting Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. Senator Mitch McConnell holds a news conference after the Senate's Kavanaugh vote. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo hailed progress and talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang Sunday before landing in Seoul on a whirlwind diplomatic visit to the region.
But we had a good, productive conversation. As President Trump has said, there are many steps along the way, and we took one of them today. It was another step forward, and so this is, I think, a good outcome for all of us.
The top U.S. diplomat met with Kim for around 2 hours Sunday morning in the North's capital, where denuclearization and a second U.S.-North Korean summit were expected to be high on the agenda before the pair shared a lunch together. The visit was Pompeo's fourth to North Korea. U.S. President Donald Trump met Kim in Singapore in June for the first ever summit between the countries. Speaking to Pompeo via an interpreter following the morning's talks, Kim praised their nice meeting. He added, "It's a very nice day that promises a good future for both countries." After a previous visit to Pyongyang in July, Pompeo had said the two foes had made progress on key issues, but within hours of the Secretary of State departing the North released a statement condemning gangster-like demands from the U.S., raising questions over how much the two sides really saw eye to eye. An official on Sunday's latest visit to Pyongyang with Pompeo said the trip was better than the last time, but added it's going to be a long haul. Details of Sunday's discussions were not immediately available, but prior to the meeting, Pompeo tweeted that he would, quote, "continue our work to fulfill the commitments made by the President of the United States and Chairman Kim," using an acronym to refer to U.S. President Donald Trump, or POTUS. On the flight to Tokyo, Pompeo said his aim was to develop sufficient trust between Washington and Pyongyang to inch towards peace. However, he played down expectations for a breakthrough.
이번 폼페이오 장관님의 방북과 앞으로 곧 있을 제2차 미북 정상회담이 한반도의 비핵화와 평화 프로세스에서 되돌아갈 수 없는 결정적인 진전을 만들어내는 좋은 계기가 되기를 기대합니다.
No sitting U.S. president has ever visited North Korea, which according to human rights groups remains one of the most repressive countries on earth. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell holds a press conference after the confirmation vote of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court Asked what the impact of the vote would be on the midterm elections in November, McConnell said, and I quote, "Our base is fired up." The U.S. Senate confirmed President Donald Trump's Supreme Court pick, Brett Kavanaugh, on Saturday, in the closest such vote in more than a century, amid controversy over sexual abuse allegations against him.
Our base is fired up. We finally discovered the one thing that would fire up the Republican base, and we didn't think of it. The other side did it. You mean women like Senator Collins and Senator Fisher and Senator Hyde-Smith and Senator Ernst? This was about treating someone fairly. This was about evidence being relevant, not about unsubstantiated charges. This is nowhere near the lowest points we've experienced. The McCarthy era, the rise of the Klan in the 20s after Woodrow Wilson premiered Birth of a Nation in the White House. We've had some other low points. We always get past them. You'd have to go back to 1888 to find the last time a Senate controlled by a different party than the president filled a vacancy created during a presidential election year.
The Senate voted 50-48 to approve Kavanaugh, and a major win for Trump as more than 1,000 protesters rallied in Washington against a nominee who had to overcome questions over his candor, partisan rhetoric, and lifestyle as a young man. Coming up, hashtag Vegas Stronger, a year after the deadly mass shooting in Las Vegas. And artists paint portraits of Las Vegas shooting victims. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I'm Ace Ramirez. A year after the deadly mass shooting in Las Vegas, where 58 people died and dozens more injured, members of the community hold a memorial promising to never let such a tragedy happen again.
The 1st of October will never be the same for Las Vegas residents. Today, Clark County and Las Vegas Metro Police Department co-host a 1 October sunrise ceremony to remember the lives of the 58 people who lost their lives last year.
In the aftermath, we became Vegas strong. I recognize that not everyone felt they were stronger. After all, some gave everything. At the same time, this community came together as one.
There are two choices, to give up or lift others up. We chose the latter. This morning should also be a reminder of ourselves to strengthen our commitment to never let this happen again and always stay vigilant. Today, we're not just Vegas strong, we are Vegas stronger.
But we can't let this define us and let evil win. We must continue to fight. I refuse to let it take one more thing from me. It took my nephew's mom, my parents' daughter, my sister, and so many more who hurt by her loss. But we will fight to bring back the goodness that was here before this.
A truly emotional morning as lives lost were remembered, from the mass shooting during the Route 91 Harvest Festival, which remains to be the worst in modern U.S. history. As a sign of strength, there are those like Minda Smith who choose to uplift others.
Don't give up hope. Keep the light going. There's a lot of evil that comes with this, but there is a whole lot more light and love, so find it.
No one had dry eyes as they left this remembrance ceremony this morning, and as Commissioner Steven Sisolak said, the city is definitely Vegas stronger. Reporting for Eagle News from the Clark County Government Center, I'm Anna Cui, and I am 1 with 25.
Thanks, Anna. Still in Vegas, Eagle News correspondent Lani Valdecantos takes us to a portrait exhibit remembering the 58 lives lost to the Las Vegas shooting tragedy a year ago. Let's take a look.
I'm here in the Clark County Building Rotunda area, or more as like the foyer, where a portrait exhibit is actually on display for those that have fallen on October 1st.
Clark County and the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center are hosting a memorial exhibit of portraits of the 58 victims. These portraits were painted by volunteer artists to have the goal to build a bridge of hope and healing through art. Once the exhibit is over, the portraits will be donated to the families. The outpour of love continues here as the message of Clark County's Commissioner Steve Sisolak includes how the community will never forget the lives lost on October 1st, but hopes this exhibit will be a tribute to those who perished and to support those whose lives are forever changed. Free resources and support are provided to anyone affected by this shooting, to include survivors, family members of victims, and anyone who witnessed the event. A part of today's events included a sunrise remembrance to recall those who have passed and bring honor to those who have brought the community together.
As the governor reminded us that the pain never really goes away, but we should all have the courage to seek peace and strength. From the Las Vegas Memorial Portrait Exhibit, I'm Lani Valdecantos, reporting live for Eagle News.
Thank you, Lani. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.ph and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I'm Ace Ramirez, 1 with 25.